Once upon a time, in a very old era, there was a beautiful kingdom. In the capital of that kingdom lived a very wealthy merchant. He had only one daughter, named Kamla. Kamla was a very intelligent and extremely beautiful girl. The merchant's wife had passed away a long time ago, so now only the father and daughter lived in that large house. When Kamla grew up, the merchant decided to marry her to a man who was almost twice her age. Kamla did not like the idea of marrying such an old man at all, and she clearly refused, saying that she would never marry an elderly person. The merchant explained to Kamla that the old man was very wealthy, possessed immense riches, and that if she married him, all his wealth would come into their possession. But Kamla did not listen to her father at all. However, her father was very greedy and heartless. He showed no pity for his daughter and locked Kamla inside the house. Many days passed, and eventually Kamla decided to escape from this imprisonment. To gain her freedom, Kamla came up with a unique plan. She said to her father, "Father, I do not want to refuse your words, but I can agree to marry that man on one condition if you fulfill one wish of mine." Hearing this, the merchant became very happy and immediately said, "Yes, yes, my daughter. I am ready to fulfill every wish of yours. What is one wish? Just agree to marry where I want you to. Now tell me quickly, what is your wish?" Kamla said, "Father, I want you to give me 500 gold coins so that I can get a special wooden lamp, chandelier, made, in which 40 candles can be lit." 500 gold coins? And a special wooden chandelier? Her father asked in surprise. "Yes, father, I want to get exactly this kind of chandelier made. Please call a craftsman today so I can explain to him how it should be designed," Kamla replied. That very day, the merchant called an expert craftsman and said, "Make exactly the kind of chandelier my daughter wants as soon as possible. And don't worry about the money. It must be made according to her wishes." The craftsman replied, "Sir, don't worry. The work will be done exactly as your daughter wants." When the craftsman started making the chandelier, Kamla said to him, "When you make this chandelier, make sure there is enough space inside it so that I can easily hide in it. Also, build a secret door in it that I can open and close whenever I want." After saying this, Kamla gave the craftsman a precious diamond and said, "Never tell my father about this secret." Along with the 500 gold coins, the diamond was also given to the craftsman as a gift. After a few days, the craftsman delivered a very large, beautiful, and specially designed wooden chandelier to the merchant's house. Kamla secretly opened its hidden door and placed food and water for an entire week inside it. The next day, the merchant said to his daughter Kamla, "I have fulfilled your wish. Now you must also be ready to fulfill my wish and marry that old man." Kamla lowered her gaze, and tears began to fall from her eyes. But the merchant did not pay any attention to her tears. He simply assumed that every girl feels sad and cries when leaving her parents' home. Without wasting any time, he went to inform the old man and said, "Hurry up and arrange the wedding. I am also preparing for my daughter's marriage." As soon as the father left the house, Kamla took off her shoes and placed them on the edge of the well inside the house. Then she opened the secret door of the chandelier and hid inside it. In the evening, when her father returned home, he looked around, but there was no sign of Kamla anywhere. He searched the entire house, but it was useless. Kamla was nowhere to be found. Finally, while searching, his eyes fell on the shoes placed on the edge of the well. He started crying loudly and assumed that Kamla, out of fear of marriage, had jumped into the well and died. He cried and said, "Oh, I am ruined. I am the killer of my own daughter. I forced her to jump into the well. If she did not want to marry that old man, what was the harm in that? I could have married her to a young man. Oh no, this is the result of my own deeds." After crying for a long time, he finally became silent. Then a thought struck him. If the city's police chief came to know that his daughter had committed suicide, and the guards came to pull her body out of the well, it would not only bring disgrace to him in the entire city, but he might even be sent to prison. So he decided that staying silent was the best option. If anyone asked about Kamla, he would say that she had gone to her relatives in another city. But by luck, no one asked him anything about Kamla's sudden disappearance. Still, the merchant was deeply heartbroken. Whenever he returned home after finishing his work, the image of his beloved daughter would appear before his eyes, and he would cry for a long time with his face hidden. That special large wooden chandelier only increased his sorrow. Whenever he looked at it, he would think, "My daughter made this chandelier with so much love and joy, but fate never gave her a chance to light even a single candle in it." Thinking this, the merchant would cry uncontrollably. Finally, he decided to return the chandelier to the craftsman and told him to sell it and give him whatever price it fetched. The chandelier was extremely beautiful and valuable, so the craftsman happily took it to his shop and placed it in a large glass cabinet for display. That very day, the king's son came to the market on horseback. At that time, he was about to get married and wanted to buy beautiful things for his future bride. As soon as the prince's eyes fell on that special wooden chandelier, he became very happy. Such a magnificent and beautiful chandelier did not even exist in the palace, one in which 40 candles could be lit. The prince paid the full demanded price and bought the chandelier. He ordered his servants to carefully take it to the palace and place it in his special room where he used to sleep. Following his command, the servants brought the chandelier to the prince's bedroom and placed it near his bed. With the arrival of the chandelier, the beauty of the room increased even more, and the prince was very pleased whenever he looked at it. The prince had a habit of having his breakfast and lunch in his bedroom. On the day the chandelier was placed in his room, he noticed something strange. The food served in gold and silver plates seemed reduced. The vegetables looked less, and 1 or 2 pieces of bread were missing. The prince was surprised but did not say anything to anyone. The next morning, the same thing happened again. The glass of milk was half empty, 2 out of 4 boiled eggs were missing, and out of 3 apples 1 was gone. The prince asked the servant, "Who has done this mess?" The servant became very frightened and respectfully said, "Your Highness, who would dare to interfere with your food? This must surely be the work of a ghost or spirit." "A ghost or spirit?" the prince shouted. "What kind of talk is this? I have never heard such a complaint before. Be careful from now on." But all efforts proved useless. Every day, something or the other would go missing from the food, sometimes a piece of bread, sometimes fruit, sometimes an egg, and sometimes even half a glass of milk. It was always found empty. The prince would get angry at the servants, scold them, and threaten to punish them. But these mysterious incidents continued every day. One morning, when the prince woke up, the servant brought breakfast. The prince saw that all the dishes were complete and properly arranged. He ordered the servant to leave the breakfast there and go. After that, he got up, went to the bathroom, washed his face, and returned to his bedroom. As soon as he came back, he looked at the breakfast table and was shocked. His mouth fell open in surprise. He realized that perhaps the servants were right. There really was a ghost in the room stealing his food. He noticed that 1 egg out of 4 was missing, the glass of milk was half empty, and 2 apples were also gone. Any other person would have been terrified and would not even think of sleeping in that room. But the prince was a brave man. He thought, "What kind of ghost is this that enjoys food and breakfast like humans? It must be caught." So he decided that one night he would stay awake and catch it and see where this ghost actually came from. The prince pretended to sleep by lying on his bed. At midnight, he slowly heard some sound. He turned his neck and looked behind. A small door inside the special wooden chandelier was opening. Then suddenly, a very beautiful girl came out of that door. She looked at the sleeping prince once, and then quietly walked towards the table where the prince's dinner had been placed, the same dinner he had intentionally not eaten. The girl sat on the chair and quickly started eating the food. The prince sometimes opened his eyes slightly and watched her. Soon she finished her meal. Then she quickly stood up and silently walked back toward the chandelier. Just as she was about to enter it, the prince suddenly grabbed her hand. The girl let out a scream and fainted. The prince picked her up and laid her on his bed. He sprinkled water on her face, and she slowly regained consciousness. When she regained consciousness, she looked at the prince with frightened eyes. "Who are you?" the prince asked. "A spirit, a fairy, or a human girl living in this world?" The girl kept crying at first, but when the prince insisted, she said while sobbing, I am a girl trapped in a terrible situation." Then she told him her entire story. The prince was deeply moved by her words. He began to like her very much. He thought to himself how good it would be if he could marry this girl, but he kept this thought only in his heart for now. Then the prince hid Kamla inside that special chandelier again. Whenever the whole world fell asleep, the girl would come out of the chandelier and talk to the prince all night. And as soon as the first rays of morning light entered the room, she would go back inside it. One night, while the prince and the girl were talking, a maid arrived in the part of the palace where the prince's bedroom was located. Suddenly, she heard voices talking and stopped right there. She wondered that the prince always sleeps alone in his room, so who was talking with him at this time? Thinking this, she slowly approached the door and peeped through a hole. What she saw shocked her completely. The girl was sitting on a chair near the prince's bed, and both of them were laughing and talking happily. Seeing this, the maid became extremely shocked and jealous. She immediately informed another maid, who told a third, and the news spread through the entire palace by morning. The princess who was supposed to marry the prince also heard this news and became extremely angry with jealousy. She called a maid and, tempting her with the promise of a reward, said that if she could tell her about that girl, how she came into the prince's bedroom, where she came from, where she went back, and who she was, she would be given any reward she wished. The maid, being very clever and cunning, agreed to the princess's request and promised that within a day or two she would investigate and find out everything. For the next 1 or 2 days, the maid kept wandering near the prince's room. Then, at midnight, she would silently move like a cat towards the prince's door and peep through a hole. She saw that from inside the beautiful chandelier, a secret door opened, and the same beautiful girl came out. After coming out, she first ate food, and then sat on a chair and talked to the prince. The girl kept watching through the door. Then, as soon as the first light of dawn appeared and the roosters crowed, the girl stood up from her chair, went back inside the chandelier, and closed the door. The maid quickly ran and told the princess the whole story with added exaggeration and demanded her reward. Instead of giving her a reward, the princess slapped her hard in anger and said, "Get out of here. Disappear from my sight. Is this even such a big piece of news that I should reward you for it?" The maid left sadly, as she had no other choice. Meanwhile, the princess devised a cunning plan. One day she heard that the prince was going hunting in the forest with his army. She had been waiting for this moment. As soon as the prince left, she sent a soldier to the queen in the palace. The princess sent a message that some of her friends were coming for a dinner party that night, and she needed a large chandelier to light up her room. She had heard that there was a very beautiful chandelier in the prince's room. It would be a great favor if it could be given to her for one night. The queen, upon hearing this, fell into deep thought. In truth, before going on the hunting trip, the prince had strictly forbidden everyone from entering his bedroom or touching any of his belongings, especially the wooden candlestick, which was to remain exactly where it was. When the servant asked for permission, the queen replied that the candlestick could not be given. Hearing this, the princess went to the king crying and said, "Your Majesty, look, even such a small wish of mine is not being fulfilled. Although in a few days I will marry the prince. Then I will automatically become the owner of all his belongings. I only need that special wooden candlestick for one night. I promise I will return it to the prince's bedroom by morning." Now the king was a king after all. He ordered that the prince's special wooden candlestick be taken and given to the princess, who could disobey the king's command. Immediately, the servants took the candlestick to the princess's room. The clever princess placed it there and lit all 40 candles at once. After some time, due to the heat of the burning candles, the inner part of the candlestick began to warm up. Afraid of being burned, Kamla was forced to open the hidden door of the candlestick and come out. She tried to run away, but could not go far and soon collapsed on the floor. The princess came closer, and seeing the girl lying unconscious, she assumed that she was dead. She was immediately ordered by the princess, "Take this dead girl, wrap her in a cloth, and throw her into the water-filled ditch outside the fort." The servant tightly wrapped the girl in a cloth, placed her on his shoulder, and threw her into the ditch before returning. As soon as Kamla fell into the water, she regained consciousness. She was not dead, only unconscious. The moment she woke up, she began struggling in the water, screaming for help. By the grace of God, an old fisherman happened to pass by at that time. When he looked into the ditch, he saw a girl drowning. He immediately jumped into the water. He was a very good swimmer. He quickly reached her, pulled Kamla out to the bank, and took her to his home. He asked about her condition, but the girl only said, "Baba, I am a girl trapped in a great misfortune, and I have no one in this world. From today, I am your daughter." Now, let's hear the story of the prince. When he returned to the palace after hunting, what was his condition? He saw that the special wooden candlestick was still in its place, but its door was open, and the girl had disappeared. Seeing this, the ground slipped from beneath his feet. In anger, he asked the maidservants and servants, "Tell me the truth. Who touched this candlestick?" But no one told him anything. Everyone kept saying, "Your Highness, none of us touched this candlestick." Finally, the prince, distressed and broken, lay down on his bed and cried bitterly. After that day, he stopped eating, drinking, and resting. His condition kept worsening day by day, and he began to look like someone who had been ill for many days. The king and queen became extremely worried and called doctors and healers from all over the kingdom. They called many doctors, but nothing worked. It started to seem that if the prince did not eat for another 1 or 2 days, saving his life would become very difficult. Countless attempts were made to make him eat and drink, but none succeeded. The king's minister was a very wise and intelligent man. He said to the king, "Your Majesty, an idea has come to my mind. If it is implemented, it is possible that we may persuade the prince to eat something." The king happily said, "Quickly tell me, what is that idea?" The minister replied, "Your Majesty, let an announcement be made throughout the entire kingdom that every person, man, woman, or child, should prepare some food for the prince. Perhaps, seeing the love of his subjects, the prince will break his fast." The king liked this idea very much. That very day, the announcement was made across the entire kingdom, and messengers spread through every street and neighborhood. It was declared that, by the mercy of God and the king's order, everyone should cook food for the prince and bring it to the palace, so that perhaps something made by someone's hands would please the prince, and he would agree to eat. The people loved the prince deeply and were very worried for him. As soon as this announcement was heard, men and women all began cooking, each trying to make the most delicious food. Some cooked sweet rice, some prepared plates of paleo and took them to the palace. Some brought vegetables, others brought sweets. Some cooked only lentils. In short, thousands of different delicious dishes began to be prepared. All of them loved their prince deeply and were preparing food only for him. But the prince was as stubborn as ever. He would not even lift his eyes to look at anyone's food. One day Kamla said to the old fisherman, said, "Daughter, everyone is preparing something for the prince. You should also make something. If you want, I can take fish soup." The old fisherman sighed deeply and said, "Daughter, what is our fate that the prince would even like fish soup made in our home? The food of great rich men, ministers, and nobles is also not even looked at by him. Then who would care for our soup?" The girl said, "Please take it, Baba. Who knows? Maybe the prince will like our soup." Finally, the old man agreed. Kamla prepared the fish soup with great effort, but it was not an ordinary soup. She had mixed some special herbs in it, which she remembered from her mother. These herbs had magical effects. Any sad person who smelled its fragrance could not resist drinking it. Kamla filled the soup in an earthen bowl and gave it to the fisherman, saying, "Please take it now and present it to the prince." The old fisherman set out toward the palace with the fish soup. On the way, people began mocking him. One said, "Look, he is taking fish soup for the prince in an earthen bowl." Another shouted, "Old man, you will be punished for this disrespect. You should have used a better vessel." A third yelled, "He probably hopes for a reward. Go back, old man. Why are you ruining your honor?" Despite all the insults and taunts from everywhere, the old man remained silent and kept walking until he reached the royal palace, where people continued to mock him. People kept mocking him loudly. The old man also began to think that perhaps he truly had no status to take this soup to the prince. Many times he felt like turning back, but then he remembered the girl, how lovingly she had prepared this fish soup. If he returned, her heart would be broken. And if the prince refused the soup, what fault would it be of his? Lost in these thoughts, the old fisherman entered the palace. The king had already given permission that anyone bringing food for the prince should not be stopped. So the guards immediately presented the old fisherman before the prince. The prince looked at the old man once, and suddenly something happened. He immediately sat up. He ordered that the bowl be taken from the old man's hands. The servants quickly brought the bowl and presented it to the prince. How wonderful this fragrance is! The aroma of the soup was very pleasant. The prince said this and began drinking the soup with great satisfaction. Everyone was shocked and surprised at how the old man's luck had changed. The prince drank the entire soup. As soon as he finished it, he felt as if new energy had entered his body. His heart became light, and it felt like some magic had happened. The prince held the old fisherman's hand and took him aside, asking, "Baba, quickly tell me who made this soup." Then the old fisherman narrated the whole story from beginning to end, how he had rescued a drowning girl from the palace ditch, brought her home, and treated her like his daughter. It was she who had prepared the soup. Upon hearing this, the prince immediately ordered his ministers and nobles to send their wives to the old fisherman's house and bring the girl to the royal palace with full respect and honor. The prince's order was obeyed, and Kamla was brought to the palace.